of funding allocated for that purpose. And at the time, we knew that we had over 120 underground facilities. So these people have carte blanche. They have an open credit line, the F-35. I mean, you can go down the list of the original Osprey program. You can go down the list of just boondoggles. And it's criminal, in my estimation, what has been going on with the unfettered purse strings opened up for the Department of Defense. And in some ways, I would think the intelligence agencies as well, especially the National Reconnaissance Office, the NRO, Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA. These are alphabet agencies you don't ever hear much about, but they get incredible amounts of money. So, besides obviously making particular corporations extremely good investments with a good dividend for their investors. These programs are just basically there. I don't really see much oversight on this, and I'm sure if $2.2 trillion can end up missing from the Pentagon, and as announced the day before 9/11, coincidentally, it wouldn't surprise me in the least that some of this money is being siphoned off for, who knows what purposes, for breakaway space program, military applications into space. And the American people aren't going to take it for much longer. There's going to be hell to pay when that little spark hits the powder magazine of culture. I think, with this coming election, it doesn't matter who wins. The other half of the country is going to go ballistic. And mark my words, this is not going to be fun. It's not going to be pleasant. It's not going to be. It's going to be very, very ugly. And they better get their proverbial murder together, or there's going to be hell to pay. And what else can you say?
This is the point that we notice here, is that this waste is going to private industry. In every case, private industry is benefiting, and you have to think, is Lockheed really throwing away all that money on the aircraft, or are they sending all the secret projects into private industry? And you look at the various boondoggles over the years, and I think of the line from the movie Independence Day from Judd Hirsch. They first learned there is an Area 51, and he makes a remark, well, you don't think they really spent $700 on a toilet seat, do you? And that's approximately what he said. And it goes back to something that was real, that at one time, I think the Pentagon was paying, $700 for a toilet seat or some ridiculous fee. And you have to think, either they're that stupid, and how can they be that stupid?
No, they think the American people are that stupid. How much did we spend on a pen that was able to operate in zero gravity when all the Russians did was use a pencil?
Well, yes, that too. But I'm saying to you is, maybe that is the smokescreen, where they say they're spending $700 on a toilet seat, they're spending $35, and the other $665 is going to some secret project.
Well, they're probably spending $74, and the other $666 are going to some, demonic, secret black project. Again, I think this can't continue. 57, I think, % of monies spent by the U.S. government going to into the military. And sure, it's one thing to have a strong defense, to thwart any sort of attack on the homeland here. But all these bases, we have hundreds of bases in other countries, and billions of dollars we send to Israel and to other countries. We got to start taking care of our own. And, maybe Arizona's rubbing off on me. I'm starting to become an isolationist or something. But I'm
so you're voting for Mr. Trump, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
There was one person out there, comedian John Oliver, did a thing about Trump. And he decided to call him by his original name, the family name, before they changed it, which is Drumpf.
Yeah, that's the sound he makes when somebody, passes gas in his general direction. It's like, Bruff.
This show is going downhill real fast, folks. But I'll stop it right now. I'll put a stop to it right now. I think we should tell our listeners what we've got going for them this week. And there's a book out there from a scholar from Scotland, actually, name of David Robertson, and the book is called UFOs, Conspiracy Theories, and the New Age, Millennial Conspiracism. And this is a book that explores the New Age and conspiracy theories through the period from past the Cold War. And he gives an introduction. And he focuses on three figures that we know about, particularly Whitley Strieber, David Icke, and David Wilcock. Now, the only thing about this book I have to tell you right now, it's currently available in a hardcover edition that costs $112 in America for a book of fairly normal size. There will be a low-cost paperback version next year. So if you like the book and you like the concepts, the things that David Robertson is talking about, don't feel constrained to have to buy the book today and spend a bundle of money. Wait till next year, okay? And this will focus on UFOs and all sorts of interesting things. So I think we'll have a really pleasant discussion. I had a few moments to talk to David earlier on before we did this show, and he sounds like a really nice guy. So I think you'll really enjoy this. Again, the book is UFOs, Conspiracy Theories in the New Age, Millennial Conspiracism. What a phrase. We got coming up next with Gene and Chris. You're in
The Paracast.
I know that a lot of our listeners are interested in UFOs, the issue of giant skeletons found in America, paranormal investigations, and what the top researchers think about such topics. One online magazine has been presenting such unusual information since 1985. It is Alternate Perceptions Magazine at apmagazine.info. Use their search function to find articles on just about every topic imaginable. That's apmagazine.info. Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Serious investors and traders want to make 81% return in 60 seconds? Use the same secret algorithm professional hedge fund managers use to make billions of dollars of profits. Turn $250 into $4,903 in just 7 clicks of a mouse. Our tool is so simple that my 82-year-old grandmother can use it to make insane stock market profits. Go to BigBuckRiches.com. Watch the free video before the hedge funds make us take it down. Go to BigBuckRiches.com. From the Robert Allen System, current returns not indicative of future results.
Are you worried about your mom or dad living alone in their house? Hi, I'm Joan London. Listen, I know how difficult it is to find senior care for someone you love. That's why I recommend a free service called A Place for Mom. They are the nation's largest senior living referral service. Call A Place for Mom today.
To receive free information on senior living communities in your area, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-704-6182.
A Place for Mom offers free one-on-one advice from local advisors and a personalized list of senior living communities you can visit. If you have questions about senior care for your mom or dad, there's a place for answers, a place for mom.
Call A Place for Mom in the next 10 minutes to get your free ebook on financing senior care as well as free information on senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-704-6182. That's 1-800-704-6182.
Hello, I'm Michael Reagan. My father, President Ronald Reagan, believed so strongly in gold that in 1985, he changed gold ownership forever. Today, our national debt is spiraling out of control, but gold coins could be the answer. Call 1-866-525-GOLD or go online to usmoneyreserve.com to get new, never-before-released information about gold. From the U.S. Money Reserve, call 1-866-525-GOLD.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
The book is UFOs, Conspiracy Theories and the New Age from David G. Robertson. And David's speaking to us from his palatial estate. Not really. His home in Scotland.
Yeah. We all live in castles in Scotland, surely you know that.
Right down the street from Sean Connery, right?
Yep, absolutely. Actually, Sean Connery used to be a milkman in Edinburgh. It's a famous story about him. Before he made the big time.
Before it was Mr. Universe.
No, he ran for Mr. Universe, but he was a runner-up.
Oh, okay. Well, not to a lot of millions of women out there. Boy, he's number one in their book.
He's kind of one of Scotland's favourite sons, it has to be said.
And he looks good in the kilt.
He does. He looks good in most things, to be honest.
Yeah,
he
sexy
used to.
People are going to wonder how we go from UFOs and conspiracy theories to Sean Connery. But then he was in one of the Indiana Jones movies where they got into some of that stuff. So there you go.
Well, yeah, I saw a cartoon on Facebook, and it showed two Scotsmen in kilts looking at the symbols of male and female on the doors of the loos, and they were both the same, and they were scratching their head trying to figure out which one they were supposed to go in. Of course, they were dressed in kilts. So anyway, I digress.
The way to tell the difference is that the women don't have beards. That's the...
okay. Yeah. Hey, well, whatever keeps you nice and drafty.
David, what attracted you, of all subjects, to UFOs? What's your background?
My background is just a fairly ordinary working class Scottish boy. I didn't really have any great interest in UFOs. I've certainly never seen a UFO, but Scotland's got a rich kind of history of odd things, so there was always stories about the Loch Ness Monster, and I always loved those kind of, paranormal kind of stories. But when I went to university and to do religious studies, studying religion, I came across the name of David Icke on a course about sort of New Age religions, and it reminded me of seeing him on the television when I was young, when I was, I think, 15, maybe 16, when he did his famous interview with Terry Wogan, the recently deceased Terry Wogan. And I remembered seeing that as a boy, and it all kind of came back to me. So I started delving into his books a bit more. But at the same time, I'd been reading a lot of Robert Anton Wilson stuff. I'm sure you and your listeners will know who Robert Anton Wilson is, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And he through him, I got interested in conspiracy theories. And then luckily, Icke brought the two things back together, and I realized, well, hey, there's a whole world about conspiracy theories and kind of alternative religious beliefs that nobody's really looking at in any depth. And so I started to do so, and found that it was pretty rich soil. And the UFO thing kind of came later. As I was delving more into this world and reading up on people like, David Icke, Whitley Strieber, David Wilcock, Jim Marrs, Chuck Missler, all these various people, and I noticed that UFOs was this kind of common thread amongst all these different groups, and that's where it came from, really.
Why have UFOs become, as you say, the common thread amongst all these people? Because if you cover people like a Jim Marrs, you know, he's conspiracies are us. He's got a whole bunch of them. Same thing with Ken Thomas. You know who Ken Thomas is, right?
I actually don't, but I will be finding out.
Oh my God! Yeah, Parapolitics, Steam Shovel Press, one of our top conspiracy scholars.
I know Steam Shovel. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the point being here is, why does it all come down to UFOs? Even with the Kennedy assassination, there's a UFO thing in there.
Yeah, it's. I think there's a couple of reasons. One reason is that there's always been these two different threads of UFO conspiracism. There's always been this kind of nuts and bolts side of it, but there's also always been this spiritual version of it. I mean, as early as the early 1950s, people are, the contactees, for instance, is a very good example of that.
You focus a little bit on George Adamski, and I think we should mention this because last week or two, I actually got a letter from somebody who wanted to bring on the Paracast, an individual who was part of a George Adamski Foundation. Now, to show you my background, I was a close friend of the late Jim Moseley, who back in 1957 did a really, really solid expose of Adamski. But, Adamski wasn't just a guy who claimed to meet up with Orthon, the silvery suited spaceman in the desert. He went back many years in his interest in mysticism and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and many of the contactees did. The contactee movement really grows out of the late Theosophical Society. The UFOs become. Do you know about the idea of the hidden masters? That the idea that there are these sort of transcendent beings who are guiding the spiritual development of mankind on the earth.
Blavatsky.
It comes from Blavatsky originally, and originally they're humans. They're humans who live in places like Tibet, but gradually they become they're humans who have transcended the physical world completely and are basically become spiritual beings, and gradually. Following, 1947 and Kenneth Arnold, by the early 50s, suddenly the UFOs are the masters, and it's the same progression, from distant parts of our world to Mars and Venus, and then to different stars. It's exactly the same as the one that you were talking about last week, actually, which I listened to.
Well, and you also have the Urantia book and Owaspipi. Owaspipi, is that how you say it, Gene?
Owaspipi,
right?
I think.
And, there are other sort of branches off that particular theosophical tree. Absolutely. One thing, I share a quick little anecdote here.
It's going to be a 1-minute anecdote.
I was on my way in 1976 hitchhiking upstate New York, and I got picked up by a guy in a Beamer who hardly ever looked at the road the whole way up the Taconic Parkway, which just freaked me out. And he was going to a theosophical weekend. And so I went up, I was with a friend, and we went up there, and I saw little gray-haired women with black cats on their shoulders. There was a cloud over the mountain the whole time, raining. Everywhere else it was clear. I saw the head of nursing for New York University totally eradicate a case of nasty poison ivy with her kind of rubbing the aura of the person that had been afflicted. Amazing weekend. It left quite an impression on me, and I ended up doing quite a bit of research into the Theosophical Society.
Okay, we've got more to cover. The book is UFOs, Conspiracy Theories, and the New Age with David Robertson. And this is just going to get more fascinating by the moment. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
So you've got to take a state construction license exam or certification. Can't decide on what books or what chapters to study? Discover right now how you can eliminate unnecessary books and wasted study time. At contractorexam.com, our study materials zero in on state-required test topics in an effective, multiple-choice format. So whether you're a plumber, electrician, general contractor, or other construction-related trade, contractorexam.com will help get you prepared. Visit us at www.contractorexam.com today.
No other network provides the level of customer service we do. When it comes to radio advertising, we are your one-stop shop. And no matter how big or small your business is, we can help. Email us at advertise@gcnlive.com, and an experienced advertising executive will help you take the first step towards driving more customers to your business or website. Advertise@gcnlive.com. Easy, affordable, effective.
Hello, I'm Michael Reagan. My father, President Ronald Reagan, believed so strongly in gold that he changed gold ownership forever by bringing back physical gold to the American public, allowing gold coins to be minted and sold to U.S. citizens just like you, starting in 1985. Gold ownership can help protect your financial future, especially when our national debt is spiraling out of control. Many smart Americans have kept their retirements from being wiped out during America's financial crisis thanks to physical gold coins. I strongly urge you to call the U.S. Money Reserve at 1-866-944-GOLD or go online to usmoneyreserve.com. Ask for a special gold guide with new, never-before-released information about gold from the U.S. Money Reserve. Call 1-866-944-GOLD or go online to usmoneyreserve.com. I'm Michael Reagan. Thank you.
Most of you know that heart disease is the #1 silent killer in the U.S. What if I told you for just $54.95 a month you could fight against heart disease naturally? At Heart and Body Extract, we've been helping thousands of people get back to a healthier heart. Don't just take my word for it. Check out all of the success stories at hbextract.com, or to order, call 866-295-5305. That's 866-295-5305. hbextract.com. Don't risk it when you can take charge of it.
Hi, this is Dr. Joel Wallach, the Mineral Doctor. You've heard me talk about 90 for Life for years. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 2 fatty acids. You may not know this, that I've actually designed Arthrodex for animals. That's right. Your pets need 90 for Life too. Get this essential pet product by calling 877-279-9422. That's 877-279-9422. Again, 877-279-9422.
Dr. Joel Wallach here. If you're a baby boomer and you're worried about the big epidemics coming, and I'm not talking about the bird flu or the swine flu, I'm talking about epidemics of Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, obesity, diabetes, arthritis, cancer. That's because the 80 million baby boomers followed all the advice of doctors, and Houston, we have a problem.
See Dr. Wallach live in Farmington, New Mexico, Thursday, May 12th at 7 p.m. Go to www.cdocinfarmington.com. That's www.cdocinfarmington.com.
Serious investors and traders want to make 81% return in 60 seconds? Use the same secret algorithm professional hedge fund managers use to make billions of dollars of profit. Turn $250 into $4,903 in just 7 clicks of a mouse. Our tool is so simple that my 82-year-old grandmother can use it to make insane stock market profits. Go to richmoneyrich.com. Watch the free video before the hedge funds make us take it down. richmoneyrich.com. That's richmoneyrich.com. From the Robert Allen System. Current returns not indicative of future results.
Hi, it's Grant Cameron from presidentialufo.com. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
We move on with David Robertson, but before we go back, let me tell you, we'd like you to join up to the Paracast Plus, where you get the After the Paracast podcast, an exclusive feature. We give you the ad-free version of this show. We've got some show transcripts up there, more videos coming, a lot of special features for a low subscription rate, monthly, annually, 5 years, lifetime. Take your choice. Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. The book is called UFOs, Conspiracy Theories, and the New Age with David Robertson. David, with regard to Adamski, he was quoted in the Saucer News expose issue from Jim Mosley as saying sometimes you have to go through the back door to present the truth. So I take it here that a lot of these people used aliens, UFOs, as just a means to an end. It was the best way to sell their message.
By these people, you mean the contactees?
Yes, people like Adamski, who had presented their viewpoint in the mouths of others, but now if everybody's talking about UFOs, and we have the influence of movies such as Day the Earth Stood Still, if people like that are presenting their message, does that make it easier to gain acceptance?
Well, I guess it does, but I said, was this after he was kind of debunked that he said this? Because it sounds to me like a strategy for explaining away why he was lying.
Well, it does, but he said this to one of his followers, evidently.
Right.
But it's not something that's been widely quoted, and certainly the people who still support Adamski after all these years are not going to admit to that phrase.
No, of course not, never. And I mean, Blavatsky had a similar thing happen where the early messages from the masters were being, the Society for Psychical Research were on the case, and they thought they knew the trick that was being done to produce them, and it's part of the reason that she left Britain. Because I'm more interested, I come from more of a religious studies background where I'm more looking at the things that people say and the reasons they say it rather than the truth or otherwise of what they're saying from a physical point of view. I think there's both kinds of things going on. I think sometimes people are just jumping on the latest bandwagon. I mean, I think Adamski was certainly a bit of a showman in many respects. But there are other people who I think are completely genuine in that they think they are getting these messages. So I think that the proportion of people who are doing it merely to get their message through and deliberately putting it in UFO language is relatively small, I would think. I mean, certainly somebody like David Icke's a good example of that. I mean, a lot of people accuse him of sort of coming up with these elaborate theories just to kind of sell books and
But he doesn't come up with elaborate theories. He steals years of research that other people do, and then uses it, cherry picks the data, and then presents it as his own. There's an old adage, if you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. If you steal from a bunch of people, it's research. I've seen him. I've sat there and watched. God, I hate to admit this. I was forced to go by his ex-wife. I had a front row seat and I was in sunglasses so I could sleep. But I ended up sitting there taking notes because I was trying to compile the list of people that he stole their work and put his own stamp on it. And to me, it's just inexcusable.
Yeah, he's definitely a synthesist. If we were to put it politely, we could say that. Of course, there's a long history of the conspiracy world and the sort of paranormal world of people building consecutively on other people's work. But certainly, yes, he has been guilty of outright plagiarism. And often there's stuff in his books that's, like, I read in a post, and you don't get a reference to what post it was or who wrote it or anything. So yeah, definitely.
Moving on here, using, of course, the UFO medium to present these ideas. Conspiracy theories in general is something that seems to infect everybody because nobody believes the explanation that's presented for any event. And Kennedy assassination is the classic event where we can't believe that one lone gunman, one fool who once defected to the Soviet Union and came back here, I can't believe this guy did it. It had to be the CIA. It had to be the international bankers. It had to be organized crime. It had to be Johnson. It had to be the space people. I don't know. It all gets confused. What is there about these theories that gain so much traction? Forgetting, again, about whether they're real or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's been said that, the size of the problem that we struggle to come to terms with is what causes us to look for, these big conspiracies. I mean, the Kennedy assassination is a very good example. Clearly, for a lot of people, it is easier to accept that there is a secret group of people who run the world and yet they've never heard of them and nobody knows about them than it is to accept that this one mad guy came back from Russia and shot him on his own, got a lucky couple of shots. But there's a lot of reasons. I think partly it's to provide connecting explanations, but also I think there is, as you say, an increasing kind of distrust of mainstream narratives, if you want to put it that way, of hegemonic control over knowledge. The French philosopher and theorist Bruno Latour has pointed this out, that in fact the logic of conspiracy theorists is almost indistinguishable from a sort of popularized version of Marxist theory, right? It's critical theory made popularized, basically. So instead of it being the bourgeoisie who are the people who own the wealth, it's the Illuminati or the John Birch Society or whoever. So I think that's part of it. It is an increasing awareness of people that there is perhaps more issues of power and control going on in what we accept as true, and yet they lack the critical faculties to judge evidence properly. As you said this last week when you were talking about Adamski again, that they just didn't know the difference between a fact and a belief. But I think there's also theodicy is an important idea. I mean, it's a kind of religious studies term, but it's basically the simple way of putting it is, why do bad things happen to good people? Conspiracies offer a good explanation for that. Well, the world isn't fair and the world isn't peaceful and loving because some bad people made it that way. It helps to explain the iniquities of the world, I guess.
Now, to be fair about the Kennedy assassination, a congressional committee some years later did conclude that a conspiracy was involved, but that was the end of it. They never really explored that conspiracy. Right.
That's absolutely true, but most people don't point out that there were several other congressional hearings, all of which were in favor of the lone shooter. One said there was a probable conspiracy, and several other. I think there was about 5 or 6 in total.
Well, that's the case here, is where if you have 5 choices, and the one that sounds simplest, you say, I don't want that one. I want the other 4, or vice versa.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, in creating these large conspiracy narratives, that's often the case. People will go, here's a fact, but not taken out of context. So in that one, you can say, oh, well, this congressional hearing found there likely was. But actually, if you take the whole set of data on balance, it's outnumbered, 5 to 1. It's the same as when David Icke says that all science that says that the physical world is all there is nonsense. But then one person publishes a paper that says the world's a hologram, and this is proof, absolute proof. It's a lack of understanding how knowledge is produced and how, as you said, a difference between a fact and a belief. You can connect dots all you like, but when you get to choose what the dots are, it's the Bible code all over again, right?
We've got David Robertson with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
You are listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Conspiracy Journal is your #1 source for the hidden world of the weird and strange. We bring you thought-provoking and controversial material for free-thinking individuals who are seeking what is really going on in our world today. Some of this material may adversely affect you. Other pieces are meant to enlighten. Either way, be prepared to be intrigued by such things as the reality of UFOs, ghosts, strange creatures from time and space, hidden conspiracies, time travel, Nikola Tesla, suppressed technology, and a whole lot more. You can find out more by visiting our website at conspiracyjournal.com. There you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter sent directly to your email address. Find out what they don't want you to know.
My dad was 59 when he collapsed from a heart attack late last year. Just this past August was when we spread his ashes on the St. Croix River. I loved my dad, but boy was he stubborn. He hadn't been to the doctor in over 25 years. His excuse? He simply couldn't afford it. He wasn't a rich man by any means. At less than $107 per month, libertyoncall.org would have been the perfect alternative for my father. Don't wait. Go to libertyoncall.org right now, for not just your sake, but for the sake of your loved ones. Again, that's libertyoncall.org.
Most of you know that heart disease is the #1 silent killer in the U.S. What if I told you for just $54.95 a month you could fight against heart disease naturally? At Heart and Body Extract, we've been helping thousands of people get back to a healthier heart. Don't just take my word for it. Check out all of the success stories at hbextract.com, or to order, call 866-295-5305. That's 866-295-5305. hbextract.com. Don't risk it when you can take charge of it.
This is Holly Thomas, Group Vice President of Cause Marketing for Macy's. Our company is working together with the March of Dimes through March for Babies to raise money and awareness about the serious problem of premature birth in the U.S. That's why Macy's is committed to raising funds through our employees, customers, family, and friends to improve the health of moms and babies everywhere. Won't you please join us in March for Babies? Start a team today at marchforbabies.org.
Hello?
Congratulations.
For what?
For losing all that weight. How'd you do it so fast?
ASAP.
ASAP what? What's that mean?
Are you ready to get as skinny as possible, as soon as possible, as simple as possible, and as sexy as possible?
I'm listening.
Then get with the ASAP program. It's real and it works. No smooth talk, no slick advertising, and no exaggerated claims of success.
I've got to know more.
Welcome to ASAP, as slim as possible. Whether you have 10, 20, or 50 pounds to lose, ASAP is your weight loss answer. ASAP targets the abnormal fat reserves and makes them available to be burned as fuel and contains no caffeine or hormones. Order ASAP at wholesale prices or join the team to share the business with others. Go to gcnteam.com or call 855-GCN-MALL. That's 855-426-6255. gcnteam.com or 855-426-6255. Lose weight and look great with ASAP, as slim as possible.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
Hey, this is Marie D. Jones, the author of This Book is from the Future, and you are listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
We're talking about UFOs, conspiracy theories, and the New Age with the author David Robertson. Chris.
Well, I think as you were pointing out at the end of the segment, there is a growing lack of critical thinking, I think, among the average people out there. I think we're seeing scientism and materialism and uber rationalism has become so ivory tower in nature that the people are losing a connection to the state of the art in the scientific community, let's say, or how governments are run, or some of the myriad problems that we have around the world. And people, instead of doing the work and getting themselves up to speed and being informed and educated about issues, their eyes glaze over and they let their TV kind of suggest how they're supposed to think about particular controversies or subject matter. And I think it's a dumbing down of the population. I think myself that it's being done on purpose. I think people that are attempting to do serious research are being marginalized and being cast amongst the great unwashed, uninformed masses who are absolutely, they're more concerned about, getting selfies of themselves every other minute. It's just, the last two words I think added to the English language were selfie and twerking. I think that kind of gives an indication of where the culture is going. There is something to Mark Mothersbaugh and Jerry Casale's Devo, the de-evolution of Bougie Man or whatever. I think we are seeing de-evolution.
I absolutely agree with you that the media is designed to not make us questioning or challenging. Absolutely. I don't know if the masses are any more dumb than they ever were, to be honest. They just have more of a voice now, perhaps. But there's also, there's issues, things like the way that the internet is going. I mean, the internet was supposed to be the great liberator of information, but in fact, it's actually narrowing our encounters with uncomfortable facts. I mean, Facebook's a very good example of this, right? We subscribe to publications and people that we like, and we come into contact with what they share over and over again, and very seldom do we come into contact with something from outside that circle. So we get this increasing kind of epistemic, limitation. Tunnel vision, exactly. It's like we're in an echo chamber, right? We hear our beliefs being told to us again and again, and we're given that evidence, but we're not given anything that counters it because that isn't, what we're following and sharing. So I think that there's more polarization along those lines is a large part of the problem.
Good point. I think people tend to unfriend people on Facebook if they even get a whiff of some sort of point of view or I don't know, something that just runs counter to their particular beliefs and their particular conclusions. And people tend to feel more comfortable when they're surrounded by the echo of the echo chamber, as opposed to really breaking through that and attempting to be educated on all sides of a particular issue or a subject, or looking at different points of view when academia addresses a subject or the scientific community. I think that it's becoming so specialized in terms of science and academia and politics. These things have become so specialized and so stovepiped that people have a hard time breaking through that. And let's face it, you're putting two young kids to bed and you're on a radio show, in the late evening there. You could be doing something different, but no, you're actually getting out there. You're getting the message out. You're trying to explain to people that, hey, there's more than one way to look at things. But I think people's natural inclination is they don't want to. They're too overworked, too bored. They're too dumb not to know that they should be doing that even. And I think it's a snowball going down the hill. And I don't unless it hits a big wall and at the end of the hill.
But I totally agree. I totally agree with you. I think academia shares some of the responsibility for that. I mean, academics are generally terrible at communicating with people, and especially with communicating with people from outside their own discipline. They make very little effort to tell the average person in the street, or even through journalism or whatever, why their work is important and why the position that we look at things from also should have a place at the table. And I think that means that academic work is, and when you do get academic work which might be of interest, it's kind of ignored, right? Because it becomes impenetrable because they're only speaking to other academics and not interested in speaking to the members of the public.
Well, and to compound the problem, academia tends to become knee-jerk conservative. Everybody's too afraid to stick their necks out and run counter to prevailing thought and theories that have already been accepted by the mainstream of their discipline. So it's much harder now, I think, for out-of-the-box thinkers within a particular scientific discipline. And this runs across the board through culture. It's not only science, it's not only academia, or, you have a perfect example in politics going on right now here in this country. It's, something's got to change. People have got to wake up, and they've got to take the time to become informed. And I just don't see that happening, unfortunately.
No, the last, a couple of generations in Britain, there's been a real move away from, the post-war period. The working class had a real desire to educate themselves and, to be involved in the political situation and reform the country in to make it a fairer place. And that's been lost now. There's a real anti-intellectualism, and I mean the same thing in the States, I'm sure. A real sort of feeling of not being able to do anything anyway, so why bother? Let's just watch game shows or watch television programs of other people watching television.
Right. And again, to even compound things even to the nth degree here, it's a self-perpetuating feedback loop, like a fractal that's going in on itself. And the worse it gets, the worse it gets. And the worse it gets, the worse it gets. And people, I think they just there's something in a lot of people, there's a switch that gets clicked off. And so what you have is a lot of people that are being overwhelmed by the fact that they're not up to speed on things. And then somebody can come along and put things together in a way that sort of resonates within their own minds, whether it's conspiratorial in nature, whether it's spiritual and religious in nature. And then they will jump into that particular, person's trip, if you will, for lack of a better word, and buy into it more readily, as opposed to being a little bit more circumspect and sitting back and going, well, wait a minute, this doesn't quite ring true. This doesn't quite ring true. They just accept everything lock, stock, and barrel. And I think it's intellectual laziness, really, is what it boils down to. I really do. I just online, I'm constantly seeing, you're trying to educate somebody about something, and they just don't want to hear about it. It's like, how dare you think that I'm wrong?
Now, to show you how this has really pervaded our popular culture, our condition, there is a TV show, a comic book TV show, where the villain engages in a plot to take over the memories, control the memories of everybody living in the city in which these events take place. And his logic is a populace more interested in reality stars and political circuses than working together to solve the world's problems. Now, that sounds like a smart statement, which it is, but believe it or not, it came from last week's episode of Supergirl.
Right. Well, Siegel and Schuster, who came up with Superman and of which all the sort of Superman family characters are based on, were both Jewish, emigres from Nazi Germany. So there's it's not surprising that themes that echo kind of Goebbels' use of propaganda and things like that are found in those comics. I mean, just like the name Superman coming from Nietzsche, for instance.
The fact that they are reflecting popular culture is...
I think they were critiquing the control of popular culture by the media in order to control them. It's definitely something that they very much saw as deeply tied to the Nazi regime, and that wasn't the case in America, and that's why they were kind of critiquing it.
We have David Robertson. We're talking about UFOs, conspiracy theories, and the New Age. And in the book, he focuses, as we pointed out, on several individuals, including Whitley Strieber. And since we had Whitley Strieber on the Paracast for the very first time a few weeks ago, I thought we'd talk more about that with David in our next segment with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best. Available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
I'm Nick Soboleski, a Select Quote agent with a true story that could save you hundreds of dollars a year. A woman named Linda just called. Her husband, Ray, has a $300,000 group life insurance policy, but is changing jobs and can't take it with him. Well, I impartially shopped the highly rated term life insurance companies we represent and found Ray, who is 41 and takes medication to control his cholesterol, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $26 a month. That's almost twice the coverage for less than half of what he had paid. If SelectQuote hasn't shopped for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 1-800-403-4885. That's 1-800-403-4885. 1-800-403-4885. Or go to SelectQuote.com. We shop, you save. Get full details in the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Your price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
So, David Robertson, why did you choose these three individuals to focus in doing this book?
Partly because they were each very good examples of, conspiracy, spirituality, and UFOs mixing together. Partly because I wanted to get a spread of the US and the UK. I had at one point tried to get a European case, but I couldn't get that one to work, unfortunately, so I went with another American case. Also because the three of them their main careers are in different decades, so it allowed me to construct a narrative through the book that ran all the way from 1947 and then in much more detail following the Cold War through Whitley Strieber in the 80s, David Icke in the 90s, and then Wilcock in the 2000s, so that we moved from the Cold War up into the present day, and we were able to see the way that the ideas developed and became more entrenched over time. So that was the main reason.
Okay, so Whitley Strieber, we're talking here about someone who writes horror fiction and science fiction, and then he claims to have been in touch with his visitors, that these visitors abducted him, but he doesn't go as far as to say, yes, this is E.T. He stays one step removed from that. You figure it out.
Right. Yeah, actually, even in Communion, he gives 6 possibilities, of which extraterrestrials are only one. And he never officially states that they are. And I've spoken to him in person. I've seen him talk at events. I've read certainly all of his nonfiction books. And I've never come across a statement where he says that that's what they are. But he nonetheless became kind of a poster boy of the abductee movement, at least in the popular eye. And so I think he always had this mixed relationship with the idea. Sometimes he seems to be quite disappointed that everybody thinks it's extraterrestrials, but on other occasions he seems quite happy to cash in on it. So for instance, you get the book he wrote about what would be needed for us to prove that there was extraterrestrial life visiting the planet, for instance. And all of his books have that same classic grey alien face on them, the entire sort of Communion series of about 6 or 7 books. So he is he knows that his public persona is deeply tied to that extraterrestrial idea. And yet I don't think he himself thinks that's what it was. I think he thinks of it in much more sort of paranormal terms, I guess.
Well, you know what he told us, that one of his biggest regrets was ever talking about anal probes, that it's just been the bane of his existence. And
right.
Comedians especially have latched onto that, and it I think he should use McKenna's term of pro bono proctologist doing uninvited house calls.
Right, yeah. Strangely, in the last book, the Solving the Communion Enigma, he refers to it unambiguously as rape, which I found quite striking so many years later. And actually at the Dreamland event that I was at, he referred to there being, still physical damage. And so, maybe he does regret talking about it, but he's continuing to do so. So again, you get this mixed message that on the one hand, he's kind of unhappy about it, or that, he wishes he never shared his experiences. But on the other hand, he consistently talks about it and writes book after book after book about it. And even most of his fiction draws from the same well,
Well, maybe the title of his book, The Secret Life, maybe there's something we should read in between the lines there. Maybe, maybe he was a switch hitter in a former incarnation. Of course, I'm trying to be funny here. It's not working. Gene's not laughing, so.
And a couple of ho-hos.
I certainly have no... I think he believes what he's saying. I don't see any dishonesty in him. That's a very different thing from saying I believe what he said actually happened, of course. But I think he is sincere.
Okay, that's an important point here. You feel that he believes he had some kind of experience. That is pretty much what he's saying. He didn't make it up to sell books.
No, I don't think he did make it up to sell books, no. I think it may be more elaborated upon later on, not consciously, but I mean, obviously he's making money from going into ever more detail about it. I mean, that's a natural process. The more we go over memories, it's, psychologists have proven that your memories become more and more elaborate over time. But nonetheless, I do think that something happened to him, or he had an experience which he believes he had an experience of some kind. I actually quite like the fact that he's still quite vague about a lot of it. I mean, it does show that he's kind of slightly more thoughtful than some people are, because a lot of people are sort of telling you in great details that this is the exact thing that happened and the spaceship looked like this and they were this kind of being and it was for this reason and they gave them messages and all the rest. Whereas he, at least, there is an element of doubt there about what exactly it was that happened. What's your feelings on that?
Chris, why don't you drop yours in?
Well, I don't know what to think about old Whit. He is one of the slipperiest characters I think we've ever had on the show. Trying to nail him down is like trying to catch Mercury, trying to nail Jello to a wall. He's had so many years and now decades of experience dodging around questions, answering questions with questions. He's very, very slick in how he presents his particular angst about.
He was an advertising executive before he started writing fiction. He was an advertising executive.
Well, he knows which side the old book's buttered on, and to keep all his readers constantly on waiting to have that final reveal is going to do nothing more than sell books. I think this last book of his was an attempt to be taken a little bit more seriously by having a bona fide academic on board. But still, I mean, you read through the whole book and it's like, why did I read this book? You really, literally don't learn anything new. All it does is... Go ahead.
I haven't read it yet because I was going to share a copy of mine with Jeff Kripal and he was going to send me a copy of that one. So I haven't actually read it yet. But I don't expect to be any great revelation, and I wouldn't have thought. He's obsessed by kind of getting academic credibility, I think, in a way that most people aren't. It's a strange move. It makes perfect sense that he would write a book with an academic, but it's not something that happens very often in this field, is it?
So the key here, though, is that he believes something happened to him. But if we're putting this in perspective, is this what he had happened to him similar to what these other abductions are? Or are they just taking his experience and coloring theirs in the same framework?
It's kind of a chicken or the egg type of thing.
Yes, indeed.
It's really, really difficult to answer that question. You have to go back to, to the original contactees, Daniel Fry, George Hunt Williamson, Adamski, Truman Bethram, one of my favorite abductee or contactees, who I think there's more evidence to support that the Truman Bethram saga was legit than any of the others from the 50s to my in my opinion, George Van Tassel, the whole bunch of them. But I think that came up with a very, very marketable subject to dive into, legitimate or not, whether it's true or not. And I think he's just taken it and run with it. And my favorite book actually is Majestic, which is the one book in this particular genre that he wrote that's nonfiction, or that's fiction rather, that's novelized. And I do recommend it.
Two things there. The first is you got to remember that a week before he had his experience that's in Communion, he had read a book by Jenny Randalls which included a description of an abduction. I don't know which exact case it was off the top of my head.
Let's pursue that in our next segment. The book, UFOs, Conspiracy Theories in the New Age, from David Robertson. And a reminder again that if you think that the current price on Amazon's too daunting, there will be an affordable version in paperback next year. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Are you worried about your mom or dad living alone in their house? Hi, I'm Joan London. Listen, I know how difficult it is to find senior care for someone you love. That's why I recommend a free service called A Place for Mom. They are the nation's largest senior living referral service. Call A Place for Mom today.
To receive free information on senior living communities in your area, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-704-6182.
A Place for Mom offers free one-on-one advice from local advisors and a personalized list of senior living communities you can visit. If you have questions about senior care for your mom or dad, there's a place for answers, A Place for Mom.
Call A Place for Mom in the next 10 minutes to get your free ebook on financing senior care as well as free information on senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-704-6182. That's 1-800-704-6182.
We all have heard about the benefits of fish oils, but what about the presence of heavy metals, PCBs, dioxins, furans, and other contaminants found in fatty tissues of fish? GCNteam.com recognizes this risk and offers IFOS certified tested omega-3 fatty acids. EPA, DHA insist on IFOS omega-3 fatty acid certification. Get the best at GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, There's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
And we want to talk to you about After the Paracast, because each week we never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen next on After the Paracast. Sometimes we continue an interview. Sometimes we just come up with something altogether new. Sometimes we summarize the show. You can get After the Paracast if you subscribe to the Paracast Plus. Go to plus.theparacast.com. Once again, that's plus.theparacast.com. We include, amongst all the benefits of Paracast Plus, the ad-free version of this show in response to your requests, better quality audio, lots of stuff coming, plus.theparacast.com. We've got David Robertson. The book is UFOs, Conspiracy Theories in the New Age. Speaking of abductions, did you explore very much Barney and Betty Hill?
Only a little bit. I wanted to dive much more into the abductee movement, but I needed to keep focused on the sort of central theme. Obviously, the Hills are important because they're really the beginning of that sort of classic abduction story. But unfortunately, there isn't any sort of conspiratorial aspect to it beyond that. So I didn't go too much into depth. But it's an area of the history that I'm hoping to go more into in the future.
So what's your feeling in general about abductions? What do you think's happening to these people?
What's actually happening to them, I really have no idea. My suspicion is that it's a bunch of different things. But I think abduction, like visits from Mary or any other kind of, spiritual or visionary kind of things, we've got to remember that experience isn't something that happens in real time. Experience is constructed after the fact. So whatever the phenomena that happen in these people's brains or around them or whatever it is, it gets turned into abduction post hoc. Actually, most abductees, certainly in the modern period, recovered memories are involved in it. It takes them a while before they begin to see themselves as having been abducted. And so basically, I think it's much the same way as I think of the UFO phenomena itself. It's an explanation that can be molded very easily to fit a range of different things. So I think it could be any number of things that's at the root cause of it. The important thing is that within modern culture and, going back into the late 40s, that this is a framework that is available to people to explain things that are anomalous. So I feel it's much more culturally generated than most people give it credit for.
So it's the culture rather than physical craft or alien beings that's involved here?
That's my opinion, yeah. I haven't really seen any evidence to the contrary. So the experience, be that a UFO sighting, be it an abduction, be it contact or whatever, in most cases will be sort of constructed piecemeal after the fact to explain away whatever the original anomalous phenomena was. There's in the current manual of the American Psychological Association, I think it's the 6th edition, there's the entry for psychosis. It points out that it's if you're having visions or other hallucinations and they fit with a culturally accepted system, then you're not psychotic. However, if they don't fit with a culturally accepted system, then you are psychotic, okay?
Uh-oh, now, I'm in trouble.
Right, exactly. So normally it's taken to mean, for instance, if you have a vision of Jesus or Mary, and you go along to your local priest and they say, yes, this makes perfect sense, it all fits, then you're okay. You're not going to get hospitalized or medicalized. But if you go along and you say, I got visited by a 6-foot marshmallow man who poured jelly on my head, then you're much more likely to end up in a mental hospital. Now, the abduction narrative is somewhere in between. It's not maybe accepted by the mainstream, but it's a deeply embedded and widely known explanatory framework with a fairly sizable population of people for whom it's absolute fact. So it's available there and has a much more comfortable relationship with the rest of culture if you use that explanation.
Yeah, but we're talking about Western culture here. I mean, when was the last time you heard about an abduction in Thailand or China or Myanmar or parts of Africa? It seems to be a Western phenomenon, and I think just looking at the progression of people claiming to somehow become in contact or in proximity of your typical Whitley Strieber cover gray alien. This was exclusively an American phenomenon for quite a number of years, and it was only until the media got a hold of it and the memes started to propagate that you then slowly started to see things happen with descriptions of grays from South America. I think would be a good one of the first places, Puerto Rico, and it's slowly like a virus kind of spread out from there, and now it's fairly ubiquitous. You can find that terminology pretty much anywhere in the Western world, but it seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, almost exclusively a Western cultural meme, if you will.
It certainly was. You're quite right about the way that it spread through the media. Yeah, that's absolutely. But are you saying that there still aren't very many cases of abduction or claimed cases of abduction in say, India or China today? Is that the case?
Absolutely none that I'm aware of. And if there are some, they're questionable, and they come from questionable sources. I remember Michael Cohen, who is one of those questionable sources. He, I think a number of years ago, focused on some cases that were from the Far East, but there was absolutely no credible, corroborating witnesses or corroborating sources for these stories, and they could have been completely manufactured for all we know. I really don't see any of these types of descriptions or experiences reported from, let's say, the most populous country in the world. There's 3 billion Chinese now. I mean, you would think if this was something that was a real bona fide nuts and bolts phenomenon, that you'd at least be getting some reports, credible reports, out of, let's say, the Southeast Asia or anywhere in Asia, and there aren't any.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I mean, it's not only Western, but it's mostly post-Protestant countries as well. There's far more abductions and UFO sightings in Europe, for instance, in the northern Protestant countries rather than the Mediterranean part. And that maybe is because there's a different relationship with ideas of the spirit world. It might be that in the more ritual-based and, or, in the case of the Far East, for instance, there may be something in the way that anomalous phenomena are interpreted that they maybe have a far more comfortable relationship with the spirit world, to put it in their terms.
We have many more terms to discuss as we try to put this in perspective, especially now focusing on UFO abductions and why we see these events in terms of space beings, and other people have other ideas about them. With David Robertson and Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
So you've got to take a state construction license exam or certification. Can't decide on what books or what chapters to study? Discover right now how you can eliminate unnecessary books and wasted study time. At contractorexam.com, our study materials zero in on state-required test topics in an effective multiple-choice format. So whether you're a plumber, electrician, general contractor, or other construction-related trade, contractorexam.com will help get you prepared. Visit us at www.contractorexam.com today.
Hello, I'm Michael Reagan. My father, President Ronald Reagan, believed so strongly in gold that he changed gold ownership forever by bringing back physical gold to the American public, allowing gold coins to be minted and sold to U.S. citizens just like you, starting in 1985. Gold ownership can help protect your financial future, especially when our national debt is spiraling out of control. Many smart Americans have kept their retirements from being wiped out during America's financial crisis thanks to physical gold coins. I strongly urge you to call the U.S. Money Reserve at 1-866-944-GOLD or go online to usmoneyreserve.com. Ask for a special gold guide with new, never-before-released information about gold from the U.S. Money Reserve. Call 1-866-944-GOLD or go online to usmoneyreserve.com. I'm Michael Reagan. Thank you.
Planning to buy food storage? Wait a minute. Many companies try to confuse you with the number of servings they sell. It's not about the number of servings, it's about the number of calories. In emergencies, calories mean survival. Go to ReadySupplyFoods.com for a comparison of leading companies. Ready Supply Foods sells the most calories per dollar of any company. Our 23 entrees and breakfasts are delicious and full of nutritious calories. The new leader in value and quality. Go to ReadySupplyFoods.com today.
Hey guys, Pat Matthews here to tell you about the newest and best way to sell products online. It's buysellmakeoffer.com, an enormously revolutionary way to sell your stuff online. It's time to clean out the garage, your old golf clubs, sports equipment, tools, and yes, even your car. Forget about the way the other guys have taken more than their share from you when the sales were finalized. Look, it's happened to me over and over and over. Then I found buysellmakeoffer.com. They will never charge you item fees. Just go there right now to sign up and load all your stuff to our server to sell. This is not an auction site. Sell your car, sell your home. Realtor, sign up now. Just use our resources along with Skype and videos, then add your creativity to sell your items quickly and with no fees. Go right now to buysellmakeoffer.com and sign up. The excitement is building. I've signed up to sell my stuff with buysellmakeoffer.com. You should too. buysellmakeoffer.com.
Looking for that edge during those intimate moments? We see many ads for enhancement, but the side effects include death. At GCN Team, we should change the Healthy Body, Brain, and Heart Pack to the Healthy Libido Pack. The brain and heart are not the only organs that require a healthy vascular system. For proper blood flow at the right moment, go to GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. That's 877-878-4203. That's 877-878-4203.
This is Jacques Vallée. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Now, as we've mentioned, we've got that special feature of the show called the Paracast Plus, and you get the ad-free version of this show. You get After the Paracast podcast, exclusive for Paracast Plus members. We have transcripts, we have videos, and we're going to have classic episodes made ad-free. We're going to kind of tweak the sound a little bit, and that's going to come up real soon now. But we've got another perk for Paracast Plus. Chris?
I've had a book about Ray Stanford, his ufological life, that I've mentioned before on the forum. here at the Paracast and also on some radio shows. And there seems to be a real controversy around the man and his work. And what I've elected to do is, I've had a completed book now for 7 years, and I've elected to offer excerpts in a Ray Stanford section on the Paracast Plus. And so I'm going to be publishing excerpts from this particular book. And I think our Paracast Plus members will, it's going to be pretty eye-opening for a lot of people. Talk about a guy who was there in the beginning, and he's been there and done that, known pretty much anybody who's anybody in the field for the last 50 years. So I think it's going to be educational for people and very entertaining.
So for more information about Paracast Plus, go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com, and very soon now we'll have the announcement about the section about Chris's book that will be posted there exclusively for Paracast Plus members. David Robertson, let's get back to it here. Now, we see how contacts with other beings are reflected in terms of our culture. So we have abductions, and people who have a more spiritual aspect to their lives may meet up with these supposed beings in another way. What about UFOs? How do the images of UFOs play out around the world?
To be honest, you guys probably know more about the nuts and bolts UFO history than I do. I do know that there have been quite a lot of UFO images coming out of China and India and things in recent years. And I've recently come across some information about cases in Northern Europe and Sweden and places like that. But I see it all as part and parcel of the same kind of phenomena, I think. As for the images, I'm very seldom convinced by any of them. I don't know how you guys feel.
I think you're being kind.
I'm a religious studies scholar. I'm trained at pussyfooting around certain things. But
fortunately, I've had a bit of a kind of an ad hoc education in how to properly identify specific elements within videos, photographs, films that would indicate it's a true photograph of a truly nuts and bolts anomalous object, and then of course the other side of the coin, that it's not, that it's a hoax or some sort of misidentified anomalous natural rare possibly but natural event. Like a few weeks ago we had a very, very interesting photograph that ended up being a drop of moisture on the lens. Right. Most people don't have this type of education, so the internet is your place to go to get titillated by highly questionable images purporting to show UFO craft. There are some very specific ground rules that I do kind of operate within when I'm looking at these photographs, and there's a glaring I think cultural meme that's a holdover from the 50s. People still think that the George Adamski photographs, the Billy Byron beam ships, and some of your favorite sci-fi films from the 50s are what real UFOs look like, and they do not look like that. And it's very simple to see when somebody has been programmed by their culture in preparing to perpetrate and pull off a hoaxed image. And to me, 98% of them are hoaxes, and out of that 98%, 3/4 of them are very almost instantly identifiable as hoaxes. And I just I just waste my time online just going down the list. Whenever I see one online, I'll put a little comment in there what I think it is, and how people really need to get up to speed on what they're in terms of their analytical abilities and their educational, their level of their education when it comes to utilizing analytical abilities.
Right, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the reasons I don't know very much about UFO photos is because it just doesn't really hold much interest to me. As you say, it's the famous historical cases are all hoaxes, and most of the modern ones you can see what's going on. And one that frequently annoys me is more common of video work. Is you'll often hear, and you come across this a lot in the conspiracy world, that you can do all of these things with CGI, and people will just say CGI explains away the reason that there's no film of this or that, or of planes hitting the trade towers or whatever. Apparently, none of these people have ever watched the extra features on the DVD of any Hollywood blockbuster in the last 20 years, because if people can really do CGI that well, then they need to explain to me why films that cost hundreds of £1 million with the best guys in the business can't do CGI special effects as well as what your average conspiracy theorist claims is done all the time. So
something
again,
here I mentioned here because I follow comic books and such. When you see flying scenes in comic books, in the movie versions, Superman flying, now Supergirl flying, I have never seen a really effective flying scene, except sometimes a distant picture where you know it's CGI, they do a drawing of the character. But the close-ups of any of the characters, and you go back to what was once considered the ultimate special effect movie for a flying scene, Superman the movie from 1978. None of it was real. Even Man of Steel. I haven't seen Batman v Superman, and maybe I won't. On TV, you see Superman, you see Supergirl flying. The distance scenes aren't so bad because you can't see details. As soon as they get up close, it doesn't work. It never does. It's always, that person is being suspended on a tightrope or by wires in front of a green screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the best looking special effects I've ever seen are often the ones that are done physically in the camera, just because it doesn't have that little just imperfect quality that just makes it jump out straight away as being an effect. But people will use it as an explanation for stuff all the time, for why the information that they're given, why the historical record doesn't match up, Osama bin Laden videos are done by somebody else, or that they can copy anybody's voice digitally, or all the rest of it. It's just rubbish.
We don't know then. We can't believe anything. We don't believe any of those pictures of Osama bin Laden were real. We don't believe that he was even killed by Navy SEALs. Maybe he died 5 years earlier, but they had to keep up his illusion to keep up the investment in the military hardware. We needed a boogeyman.
Right, yeah. There was a study from a couple of years back where they looked at some psychologists, and they did sort of questionnaire-style research into conspiracy beliefs. And the basic thrust of the results they got was that people who were likely to believe one conspiracy theory were likely to believe other ones, even when they were contradictory. So if you believed that Osama bin Laden wasn't dead, you were also more likely to believe that he had died 5 years previously. So it's a complete, just a lack of trust, full stop, a lack of belief in anything, really.
Can you blame the public for not trusting those in power?
Oh, absolutely not. And I certainly don't want to give the impression that I think that the suspicion is necessarily incorrect. I certainly don't. I would go much further than most academics and say, often there are truths in here, but it's the lack of it's mixed up with a lot of nonsense, in the same way that the UFO field is, I guess.
Let's get into more of that in our next segment with David Robertson and Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats, I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKEsoft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKEsoft.com.
Worried about lead, fluoride, and other contaminants in your drinking water? Get a ProPure with the Pro 1G 2.0 cleanable reusable filter and remove up to 200 contaminants. Drink water the way nature meant it to be. Clean, crisp, and refreshing. See the complete line of ProPure products, including the new ProMax shower filter. There's a ProPure for you. Visit your authorized ProPure dealer for details or ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com or 800-544-3533.
Serious investors and traders want to make 81% return in 60 seconds? Use the same secret algorithm professional hedge fund managers use to make billions of dollars of profits. Turn $250 into $4,903 in just 7 clicks of a mouse. Our tool is so simple that my 82-year-old grandmother can use it to make insane stock market profits. Go to bigmoneybig.com. Watch the free video before the hedge funds make us take it down. Bigmoneybig.com. That's bigmoneybig.com. From the Robert Allen System. Current returns not indicative of future results.
We use mobile devices right against our bodies every day, but growing scientific evidence has emerged showing serious health risks associated with exposure to EMF radiation emitted from these devices. The solution is Defender Shield, the most effective mobile radiation shielding ever developed. Defender Shield blocks virtually 100% of EMF radiation from cell phones, tablets, and laptops, and starts at just $64.99. Buy now at DefenderShield.com. For 10% off, use promo code GCN. DefenderShield.com, the worldwide leader in mobile radiation shielding.
This is a healthcare alert from the Pain Relief Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee, back, shoulder, or ankle pain and have Medicare as your primary insurance, we've got great news. You don't have to suffer any longer. You can immediately qualify for a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you by calling our 24/7 Pain Relief Hotline at 866-389-0620. Delivery is free and all paperwork is handled for you. If you are on Medicare and have knee, back, shoulder, or ankle pain, don't wait. You can qualify to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost by calling our 24/7 Pain Hotline now at 866-389-0620. Our representatives are standing by 24/7 to take your call and rush you your pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and all paperwork is handled for you. Just call 866-389-0620. That's 866-389-0620. Again, 866-389-0620.
Hello, I'm Michael Reagan. My father, President Ronald Reagan, believed so strongly in gold that in 1985, he changed gold ownership forever. Today, our national debt is spiraling out of control, but gold coins could be the answer. Call 1-866-525-GOLD or go online to usmoneyreserve.com to get new, never-before-released information about gold. From the U.S. Money Reserve, call 1-866-525-GOLD.
Hi, this is Bryce Abel. I'm the producer of Dark Skies, the co-author of AD After Disclosure, and you are listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
So it's UFOs, conspiracy theories, and the New Age. And I want to focus a little bit before we get to listener questions on conspiracy theories in general. Let's just take it back to the early days of the UFO field, Roswell, New Mexico. Do you think that was a balloon or a test aircraft from somebody, or what? What's your impression?
It looks very much like it was a radar test balloon. I mean, the remains fit the description. We've got eyewitness testimony, people who were working there that say this is exactly what they looked like. We've got records of when it was happening in the area. On the other hand, I mean, even Mac Brazel thought it was some sort of experimental aircraft. He didn't think it was a UFO, like an extraterrestrial craft. It seems like that was a cover story put out by the military. It just seems to be the easiest explanation, right? Occam's razor.
Well, here's the situation there. Kevin Randall, who has been one of the more prominent people studying Roswell, he wants to tell you it couldn't be a mogul balloon because when you look at the logs, they don't show a mogul balloon going off that particular time frame.
Well,
that assumes
plus,
the logs are correct.
Plus, Jane, the photographs in the press conference in Ramey's office has quite a number of examples of debris that cannot be matched up with a list of parts for a mogul balloon train.
Okay. As I said, you guys know much more about the nuts and bolts of these aspects than I do. This stuff doesn't matter a great deal to me because I'm not really out to prove truth or fact one way or another about UFOs or abductions. That's not really what interests me. What I'm interested in is how it works culturally and what it means culturally.
Well, I tend to think here that the biggest problem we have with Roswell is that when UFO researchers got into it, which was, 30 years later, William Moore and Charles Berlitz and Stanton Friedman, the memories of it were contaminated by those 30 years of experience. So whatever happened, it became a different matter entirely when it was recalled later. And once the books got to be written, more and more people came out who said, oh, yeah, I guess there was something strange about that. Maybe I did see a small alien. I'm not saying that there was no basis for Roswell or that it wasn't a balloon, that it wasn't a test aircraft, that it was a spaceship. Well, I'm not saying anything like that.
It grew a life of its own.
Absolutely. And this is a lot of the problem because of the culture. Well, we had Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 1978. And this is just around the time that all the Roswell information is coming forth.
Absolutely. It's what I said earlier on. Experiences are constructed post hoc and they take place culturally. So the memories are affected by all of these new frames of reference that have come out in the meantime. In 1947, Mac Brazel didn't think it was a UFO. The only person who said it was at the time, as far as I'm aware, was the military spokesman who appears to have been trying to distract from whatever was really going on. I recently read the Aztec UFO incident book by Ramsey. I can't remember his first name.
Right, Scott Ramsey and Suzanne Ramsey. Let me just preface this before you go on.
That's the one, yeah.
Right. They recently came out with a new edition of the book. They had a self-published version 2 or 3 years ago. And then they found a mainstream publisher and they reissued it. And they claimed there were a lot of changes, 120 new pages. But I've asked Scott Ramsey to explain to me, in general, what has been added, what has been changed in the book, and I can't get an answer. So what's your reaction?
Well, I was struck by the paucity of actual sort of, it presents itself as if it's full of physical evidence, and there really is not an awful lot. There's a bit of concrete on a hill, and there's a scratch on a cliff. But the vast majority of the book is eyewitness accounts by people 50, 60 years after the fact. There's one example in it where he says, he's describing a man describing the events of can you remember the supposed date of the event? Is it about 1950, something like that?
It's 1948.
1948, okay. Describing the events of 1948 shortly before he dies. And we're talking about a very old man in his 80s, I think. And Ramsey describes it as having had 60 years to think over and be sure of the facts. This is what he says. And I thought that's exactly the opposite of the case. This is something that happened 60 years ago to an old man, and you're expecting this to have any objectivity whatsoever. But the book is almost entirely made up of these kind of long, distant witness testimonies.
Yeah. Well,
it's just not reliable at all.
I must interject something here. Ask any veteran of the Korean War, or the few veterans left from World War II, and when they have life and death situations going on around them, those experiences are deeply imprinted upon their conscious mind, and their recollection tends to be a lot more reliable than somebody who's trying to remember who they met at a party 5 years ago. I mean, some of these, real life-changing and emotionally wrought events are deeply, deeply imprinted upon the human memory banks and the human conscious. And recollection is, I think, much easier when you're facing a potentially life-threatening or life-altering situation. I think the quality of memories are better. I do agree with you that when people come out of the woodwork and say, "Oh yeah, I was there too, and I remember this, that, and the other thing," that's different. I think when people are faced with up close and personal experiences with the unknown, the inexplicable, the possibly life-threatening, that tends to leave a pretty deep and, I think, accurate, lasting impression, more so than your average non-threatening experience. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that. I mean, I know that that's the way we normally think about it, but I haven't looked into the clinical work to know if that's true. I know we certainly think that these pivotal moments, that we've remembered them very clearly, but I wouldn't be so certain that we actually do necessarily. I mean, I understand what you say. It certainly could be the case that, you know, the adrenaline and the fact that we're concentrating so hard to use the example you gave, in a sort of wartime situation, could cause you to remember more visual detail of something happening because you're paying so much more attention to it. The same way as the first time you go somewhere, it seems to take twice as long than it does once you know the way, because you're having to concentrate so much.
Exactly. Well, I had a up close and personal contact experience when I was 7, and I remember it vividly. My story's never changed. It's never been added to. It's never been subtracted from. It's about as clear as, well, it is probably the clearest experience, I think, from my childhood. That and having my front 3 teeth knocked out by a line drive in Little League.
Right, yeah.
I won't forget that one either. I threw the guy out trying to steal a third, but man, I got my face bashed and my lip split open, and kind of hard to forget something like that. But my experience when I was around my 7th birthday left a deep and very, very indelible impression on my mind, and has been, I think, the motivation for me to be as interested in these very fringe subjects, much to the bane of my social my social calendar and existence. But
what social calendar?
Well, I'm not like you, Gene. I do get out. I do have a life.
It's a very familiar pattern, actually. That's a very common story amongst not only abductees, but amongst conspiracy theory people as well. I mean, the whole range of the people that I was speaking to, because I did a lot of field work amongst, the sort of people who follow these ideas, and, people who go to David Icke concerts and go to Whitley Strieber events and stuff. And it's a pretty common story. I would say about half the time there's some sort of experience of some description. Either a sort of spiritual kind of style, or a more physical of seeing, physically seeing a UFO. But the important thing in those cases is that it often suggests to them that there's something inexplicable to the mainstream way of seeing the world. And so it leads down this rabbit hole of looking for alternative ways of understanding the world. It's what I talk about, this sort of almost Gnostic idea.
Yeah, it's very motivating to some people who are curious by nature and seekers, people who want answers and aren't satisfied with half answers. They really want to dig and get to the truth. That's not everybody. Some people, the opposite happens. They go into complete denial, or they block a traumatic experience away from their conscious mind in a way to deal with it emotionally. You'll find that with child abuse victims, with people that have had nasty experiences, with others. Sometimes they're sublimated and held in a safe little Pandora's box in their memory banks. It works both ways.
We've got Gene and Chris and David Robertson. You're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and the Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
As you know, neighbors, web hosting can be pretty cheap, but not all hosting is the same. DreamHost wins Best of Awards year after year. You get unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, and even the low-cost plans put your sites on high-performance SSDs. Want to know more about what DreamHost has to offer? Go to technightowl.com/host. Once again, that's technightowl.com/host.
I'm Nick Soboleski, a Select Quote agent with a true story that could save you hundreds of dollars a year. A woman named Linda just called. Her husband, Ray, has a $300,000 group life insurance policy, but is changing jobs and can't take it with him. Well, I impartially shopped the highly rated term life insurance companies we represent and found Ray, who is 41 and takes medication to control his cholesterol, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $26 a month. That's almost twice the coverage for less than half of what he had paid. If SelectQuote hasn't shopped for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 1-800-403-4885. That's 1-800-403-4885. 1-800-403-4885. Or go to SelectQuote.com. We shop, you save. Get full details in the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Your price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Chris, we have some questions of David Robertson, some intricate questions, some of which we've kind of covered already, but you might want to focus on some.
I want to talk about David Wilcock first.
Sure.
Because this guy, I really want to get your take on him, David. I have a real problem with this guy, especially with this current. About every 6-8 months, he comes up with some new thing to keep his name out there in the forefront and be all cutting edge and everything. First, the fact that he claims to be the reincarnation of Edgar Casey, that kind of taints him from the get-go. I don't care how much his pictures look like Casey when he was a kid. That's a big claim to make. And quite frankly, if you want to be taken seriously, running around claiming something like that is not going to help your credibility when you're starting out as to become this, fairly successful panderer and promoter of conspiracy. What do you think of him and this, especially this new character that's come along, this Corey Good guy who claims he's been to Mars and has all these fantastic sci-fi tales about, our presence on the moon, on Mars, our time travel program, and
it's a new version of the Serpo story, isn't it? Serpo, is that the one from the 90s?
Yes, Serpo.
Yeah, Wilcock, I should preference that of the two, he was the one I didn't have direct contact with. I only know his material, through his publications and so on. It should be pointed out as well that although he claims he's the reincarnation of Edgar Casey, Edgar Casey's association, I think it's the ACE, don't recognize it at all.
The ARE.
The ARE, that's right.
Association for Research and Enlightenment. I lived across the street for 2 years.
Wow. They don't recognize him at all, and in fact seem to not want to have anything to do with him. Certainly he's a very good example of kind of a serial millennialist. He's been wrong about the coming transformation of the world for better or ill a number of times now, and it's been 3 or 4 years he's been on this disclosure tip, that the government are getting ready to reveal all the hidden secrets about their dealings with extraterrestrials. And that's been going on for a number of years. And he always has these insiders that he produces from somewhere. It was Benjamin Fulford was a recent one, and there was another guy called Drake who was I only know about him through Wilcock, but he'd basically some guy claiming to be, an Illuminati, a high-level Illuminati, born into a high-level Illuminati family who had, run away and was now hiding in some hotel room somewhere, spilling the secrets out. to tiny conspiracy chat rooms whilst the Illuminati sought out to silence him.
Right. Wasn't he involved with the Dan Burrich and the Area 51 alleged Area 51 scientist who came out and was talking about the Ganesh particle and L-Rod and all this stuff about 6-7 years ago, if I remember correctly, maybe 7-8 years ago. I think he was involved in all that with Kerry Cassidy and the Project Camelot.
Yes, he was. He's done a few things with Kerry Cassidy, actually. Yeah. Of the three, he's the one I have the least faith as being sincere. Let's put it that way.
Well, he's on Ancient Aliens, so he must be legitimate.
Like, have you heard about this film he's supposedly been developing? He's been claiming he's developing this film, this Hollywood film, large budget kind of thing, that's about to come out, and it should be out next year. And it's been literally 15, 16 years he's been claiming this.
And I wonder how much money he's raised to produce that film.
I wonder. Yeah, it's almost finished. It just needs one more pass on the script.
I hear he lives in quite a fancy house in the L.A. area that's quite expensive and has expensive tastes. And there's no lack of what would be the term? Self-appreciation, to be kind.
Absolutely. I mean, he's published his own autobiography on his website, which includes descriptions of how gifted he was as a child, for instance. It's quite astonishing reading. It's quite hagiographic, you know. But also, for somebody who's so incredibly spiritually enlightened that he can charge other people, $100 for a video on how they can, purify themselves spiritually. He seems to spend an enormous amount of his time excusing the fact that he hasn't updated his blog because he's had a bad flu. I mean, it seems to happen 2 or 3 times a year.
So someone so perfect is getting flus all the time. You have to wonder.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, which is it? Are you enlightened or are you pretty earthy, in fact?
Well, I don't know about the flu, but he's sure a floozy in my book. Sorry, bad joke.
You go, Chris. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to crack bad jokes, but I must say, millions of people hang on his every word. They look past all the foibles, all the prophecies that don't come true, all the information that doesn't seem to stand just the slightest bit of scrutiny. Why the attraction to so many millions of people? How come people really take this guy seriously? There's a huge audience for this stuff out there.
There's a number of reasons. I mean, the failing prophecy motif of a spiritual leader or whatever it's not unusual. It's pretty common, in fact. There are always reasons given for the reason that the prophecy didn't pan out the way it was meant to, and these seem to convince people a lot, and have done going back centuries, if not longer. I wonder if maybe we as outsiders put too much stress on this kind of prophecy as being literally true. I wonder if for the audience, the prophecy aspect of it isn't the biggest or the most important part of it. The prophecy often acts as a critique of the present day. By pointing out what's going to change in the future, you're kind of critiquing what's wrong with today. And there's a fair argument that for a lot of prophets, that's actually the appeal of their prophecy. And there's a chapter that people can get through my website, which it's called this model of rolling prophecy, the idea that the prophecy never really comes to anything, but is always being made and updated and refreshed and moved further into the future, because its function is not actually to tell you in the world's end, but to offer a critique of what's happening today. But don't forget that David Wilcock has been very canny from the beginning of his career in attempting to create a very mainstream a sense of authority about himself. So he's gone straight for books with through major publishers with large that sort of look like bestsellers immediately. He's made a big deal out of whenever he gets mentioned in the mainstream media. He's not been afraid to go on things like Ancient Aliens again and again and again and make these polished kind of television presentations, because for a lot of people, that is authority, If it looks like something that's on CNN, then it must be true. So I think he's been very canny in doing that as well.
Yeah, well, that's a real, I think, a very, how would I put it, subtle condemnation of the average, person interested in this material. And, that's why this whole field in my book, in my view, has been marginalized so thoroughly and effectively within the academic and scientific communities. It's impossible to take an aspect of this field seriously and ignore everything else. It's either all or nothing. And that's kind of how academia looks at this stuff. And I think they have reputations in tenure and grants and things that they're concerned with, and they can't do anything to in any way jeopardize those things that help pay the bills and keep their departments running. So, someone like a David Wilcock, a David Icke comes along and is able to get some high-profile believers, true believers in their ranks. I think that if somebody who I read about in People magazine, if somebody that has high visibility believes in it, then maybe I should too.
David Robertson with Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
If you're fascinated by UFOs, ancient aliens, archaeological mysteries, ghost hunting, Atlantis, and any other paranormal topic as we are, be sure to check out apmagazine.info each month. Since 1985, it has presented the latest research by top researchers like Andrew Collins, Brad Steiger, and many others, and contains interviews with such leading personalities as Jacques Vallée. Click on one of their banners and check out apmagazine.info. As you know, neighbors, web hosting can be pretty cheap, but not all hosting is the same. DreamHost wins Best of Awards year after year. You get unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, and even the low-cost plans put your sites on high-performance SSDs. Want to know more about what DreamHost has to offer? Go to technightowl.com/host. Once again, that's technightowl.com/host.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
My dad was 59 when he collapsed from a heart attack late last year. Just this past August was when we spread his ashes on the St. Croix River. I loved my dad, but boy was he stubborn. He hadn't been to the doctor in over 25 years. His excuse? He simply couldn't afford it. He wasn't a rich man by any means. At less than $107 per month, LibertyOnCall.org would have been the perfect alternative for my father. Don't wait. Go to LibertyOnCall.org right now, for not just your sake, but for the sake of your loved ones. Again, that's LibertyOnCall.org.
Hi, my name is Nick Lupo. One World Whey has been by far the best protein that I've ever had. I take it 3 times a day. Once in the morning as soon as I wake, once for a pre-workout snack, and once for a post-workout recovery drink. It has helped me transform and sculpt my body into what I have now. I began taking the product about 2 years ago, and boy, let me tell you, I'm in the best shape of my life. I've seen major muscle mass gains and have 0% body fat. I have had people at my gym ask if I compete in bodybuilding because of how lean and muscular I am. I used to suffer from everyday aches and pains from hard manual labor my whole life and arthritis that runs through my family. But One World Way has helped me take that everyday pain from a 10 to a 3. Some days I feel no pain at all, just full of life and energy. It has also helped my skin look younger and healthier. Thank you, Synergistic Nutrition, for One World Way.
Call 888-988-3325 or visit oneworldway.com. That's oneworldwhey.com.
Hello, I'm Michael Reagan. My father, President Ronald Reagan, believed so strongly in gold that in 1985, he changed gold ownership forever. Today, our national debt is spiraling out of control, but gold coins could be the answer. Call 1-866-525-GOLD or go online to usmoneyreserve.com to get new, never-before-released information about gold. From the U.S. Money Reserve, call 1-866-525-GOLD.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
So, Chris, any more comments about this individual before we set him aside?
Well, I mean, have we covered him? I mean, what else would you like to say, David, about this guy? I mean, he's just one of quite a number of people out there, who are successful to greater or lesser degrees. Him being a very obviously a more visible example of this. But what do you make of this guy? Do you think that he really believes all this stuff, or do you think it's just a very artful career that he's niche that he's carved for himself?
I think he's quite a good drummer. Have you heard his jazz rock work? It's not bad. I don't really know what to make of him. As I said, I have less faith in his honesty than I have in some of the other ones. But to be fair, I don't know. It seems to me that you could explain away a lot of like the sort of dream interpretation stuff that he does. I mean, it seems like a pretty standard trick to me, but he's certainly imaginative in what he does. The problem I have is that I find it hard to believe that somebody would deliberately go into this field as a career choice. I think the risks would be very, very high. So, I always have this sense of there must be something that drove them into it. Having said that, there are almost certainly con men working. So I could see it either way, but certainly, if you described Stryber as wriggly, like I think Wilcock is much more wriggly, and he certainly has an extremely high opinion of himself, which doesn't generally elicit trust from me.
Well, I think where it all started. In fact, I met the guy that was the one that saw a photograph of him and then saw a photograph of Casey about the same age and said, "Oh my God, that's Edgar Casey." And I think it just totally went to his head. It was a guy here in Sedona, actually, that I think mentioned this in a book about him way before he was known as a personality in this field. This would be back in the probably late 90s.
Right, that's the first book that basically this other guy wrote, but it has a picture of Wilcock on the cover, yeah.
Another book for people that are interested in how millennialist thinking and failed prophecy works or doesn't work, as the case may be. There's a very good book called When Prophecies Fail that looks at a particular case, I think back in the 50s, of a millennialist group. And what happened to the group after everybody sold their houses and finished up their earthly lives to be ready to be raptured up, and then it didn't happen. And it looks at the impact of this on families, on individuals, and on the principles involved. I really do recommend it. It's called When Prophecy Fails.
When Prophecy Fails, yeah. Leon Festinger, 1956. The group that he's describing is a UFO prophetic group. The woman at the head of the group had a background in theosophical thinking. Unfortunately, there's no conspiracy theories involved in it. Otherwise, it would be perfect for me. But yeah, I've written a little bit about that. But I'm trying to remember the name of the scholar, Gordon Melton, a famous American scholar of new religions, once said to me, David, you've got to remember, for believers, prophecy never fails. And for me, that's the important thing to understand, is that for the members of this group, the prophecy didn't fail. Something was wrong somewhere. Either they misinterpreted it, the message was garbled somewhere in transmission, or as I suggest, that a conspiracy, there was a counter agency that prevented it from happening. But prophecy from an insider's point of view never fails. It just, it moves, it changes.
Yeah. Well, of course, we have someone like Billy Meyer, who makes prophecies, and sometimes he makes the prophecies after the events. So you're always correct.
Well, almost always.
Sure, or you backdate it. And he's universally wrong, but there are people who will swear that he is the real deal.
Right, like this, there's a prophecy that's doing the rounds now about, I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically somebody who predicted the popes, like the line of popes, and said that the 13th one is going to be the last one. Do you know the thing I'm talking about?
That's actually been around for quite a while.
It has, but it's getting a bit of traction now. But again, the prophesized bit actually is a lot of that. It isn't as old as it claims to be. So a lot of what looks like was successful prophecy, hence validating the document and making people think that the future parts of it will be true, are actually had already happened. Another way of looking at this, though, another good example of another technique is what David Icke does, for instance. So he still talks about the group of prophecies that were made in 1990, and the ones that he was talking about on Wogan and describes in the Truth Vibrations, his first kind of spiritual book, and he still makes reference to them. So things like, he will be dishonored in his own home and homeland, and he will write 7 books in 5 years and all this stuff. But he misses out the stuff that was wrong. So he misses out the fact that Mount Rainier is going to erupt in 1992, and all of these other things that were prophesized at the same time. They just get ignored. They're no longer mentioned anywhere. And one book where he makes a lot of prophecies is I think it was his second one, Love Conquers All, or something like that. Is now he hasn't reprinted it because so much of it was untrue, so it's very hard to get hold of. At the same time, he's making the claim that he predicted Jimmy Savile, that he had named Jimmy Savile in print, before Jimmy Savile's death, and in fact he hadn't. I've been through every single one of his books and every single one of his videos, and he does not make that claim anywhere. And yet he's still making the claim, and you still hear his followers saying, "Oh, he predicted this a long time ago."
Well, it's part and parcel of the UFO field that no effort to expose a hoax will ever succeed, even when it does. Just as I mentioned before, George Adamski, he was exposed years ago, but people still maintain he's the real deal. Billy Meyer, it doesn't matter. In the UFO field, if you prove somebody's a liar, they will either come back a few years later as if nothing was wrong.
It's the Dracula syndrome.
Yeah, it's like this came from one of our occasional guests, Paul Kimball, and he said someone else invented it. And it's about Aztec, where it's like Dracula. You stick a stake through it, Aztec, and a few years later, it was back again. That story just never goes away.
No. Well, one thing I want to point out about David Icke that few people really have mentioned. In fact, I think I may be the only one. He gave an 8-hour presentation to a packed standing room only audience of about 1,500 to 1,800, paying, I don't know, ungodly amounts of money a piece. And in the first 4 hours, he spent the whole time convincing everybody that we create our own realities and that we have to be very careful what we believe in because it might come true. And then he spent the second 4 hours freaking everybody out with alien reptoids running the world and sacrificing babies.
Yeah.
Now, there's a little cognitive dissonance there, wouldn't you say?
Let's have an answer in our next segment. If we can basically recover from this.
Okay.
And maybe we're creating our own consensus reality here doing it.
You guys just need to believe harder, that's all.
Is that it? Well, I'm in trouble now. David Robertson with Gene and Chris, trying to believe. We want to believe that you are
in the Paracast.
You are listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
A good stove is at the top of the list for any serious survivalist. That's why you have to see the full range at Emberlit.com. Simple, elegant, but extraordinarily efficient. Available in titanium or stainless steel, the Emberlit line of stoves are ultralight, pack flat, and work great. Fueled only by sticks and debris. From emergency situations to long-term survival, Emberlit stoves are up to the task. Emberlit, the most convenient, easy-to-carry wood stoves on the planet. See them all at Emberlit.com. By now you know that wireless technology like cell phones do in fact pose dangers to the health and privacy of everyone. Block-It Pocket's wide range of products are unmatched in providing the protection you deserve. No scare tactics, just common sense. BlockItPocket.com offers quality American-made options to alleviate and eliminate these invisible dangers. Learn more at BlockItPocket.com or call 888-315-9618. BlockItPocket.com, enhancing health and privacy.
Hello, I'm Michael Reagan. My father, President Ronald Reagan, believed so strongly in gold that he changed gold ownership forever by bringing back physical gold to the American public, allowing gold coins to be minted and sold to U.S. citizens just like you, starting in 1985. Gold ownership can help protect your financial future, especially when our national debt is spiraling out of control. Many smart Americans have kept their retirements from being wiped out during America's financial crisis thanks to physical gold coins. I strongly urge you to call the U.S. Money Reserve at 1-866-944-GOLD or go online to usmoneyreserve.com. Ask for a special gold guide with new, never-before-released information about gold from the U.S. Money Reserve. Call 1-866-944-GOLD or go online to usmoneyreserve.com. I'm Michael Reagan. Thank you.
Water is the single most important thing your body needs, so you want to be sure it's the best for you and your family. Since 2005, thousands have depended on Berkey purified water. The Berkey Guy provides the lowest priced filtration systems in every size. For incredibly delicious water now and in an emergency, get to GoBerkey.com or call 877-886-3653. 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com. My computer is so slow, it's making me crazy.
I used to have that problem.
Did you quit using a computer or did you buy a new one?
No, I called Geeks On Site. They made an appointment to visit my home and showed up the same day.
You mean they didn't ask you to bring your computer to a shop? That's what happened when I called a support company.
Geeks On Site can go to your home or business or even repair your computer online. They have 24/7 emergency service.
If you are having problems with your PC or Mac, call Geeks On Site, 1-800-591-1682. Our friendly certified computer repair experts are available 24/7. Call now for a free diagnosis, 1-800-591-1682. Data recovery, virus removal, and maintenance for all laptops, desktops, printers, and networks. That's Geeks On Site for friendly certified computer repair experts, available 24/7 over the phone or in your home or business. Just call 1-800-591-1682. That's 1-800-591-1682, 1-800-591-1682.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Yes, we're trying to believe. We want to believe everything and nothing. Someone once said that in the UFO field. I believe in everything and nothing. I forget who that was.
Well, it's like the slogans of the X-Files, right? The truth is out there, but trust no one.
Think about that. You know, the guy spends 4 hours telling you you are responsible for the creative manifestation of your reality. And then the second 4 hours, he freaks everybody out with these, like, these reptilian, Queen of England drinking baby's blood, and I wasn't there, but I've heard the shtick before, and I've read some of his books, and I don't know, how can people not see? I don't know. Cognitive dissonance is
cognitive
term
dissonance
that I can think of.
That's a nice link, because that's a term that was introduced by the book When Prophecy Fails, interestingly. Well, I saw Ike in Wembley in 2012, and it was 10 hours at that point, and there were 6,000 people there. I was one of them. I paid about 60 quid, I think it was. Although for a 10-hour show, that's not that bad.
Oh, that's good bang for the buck.
It's pretty good. It was more or less the same format. I mean, he flipped the format of his show around about 2005. He used to always start with one specific conspiracy case study, right? So the Princess Diana was the favorite for a long time, and then it was 9/11. And he would go into depth in the case and point out the connections, and these people are involved, and so on and so forth. And until you built up to this large-scale kind of conspiracy model. That famous slide he's got with the pyramid and how all the various parts of society are all connected and ultimately controlled by one small group at the top, at which point he would let you into the biggest secret, which was that they were reptilians. At some point, he flipped it about 2005, and I don't know whether it was a deliberate attempt to move away from the reptilian material because it was such a hot potato,
Over the top, I think, would be a good term.
I think that would be fair, or certainly perceived to be. Instead, he focuses on this kind of holographic universe stuff, and that we create our own reality. Although it should be pointed out, he means it in a collective sense more than an individual sense, I think. And there are, I think Tales from the Time Loop is the clearest explanation, where he does attempt to link all of these apparently disparate ideas into one large narrative. It's incredibly complex and very reminiscent of the kind of creation myths of the Gnostics, for instance. So you've got this idea of a fallen, we do create our own reality. The human or life creates its own physical reality, but then we've become trapped and created this sort of shadow being, like the Gnostic demiurge or whatever, which feeds on our fear. So he's kind of trying to have his cake and eat it too, that we do create and manifest the fallen world that we find ourselves in. But we are also the cause of the trap. So for those of us in it, things like reptilian entities and our bodies and everything else are physically real, but that physically real universe is something that we are creating, including the negative aspects of it, the reptilians and other negative beings.
We're children of the Matrix.
We are indeed. That's another interesting thing about Ike, is that how much of it is drawn from films. Have you heard his interpretation of Monsters, Inc.?
No.
So Monsters, Inc., according to Ike, is produced by the Disney agency to rub our noses in it, because it tells the truth about the system of the world. So that our world is the world that we're the little children asleep in the bed, right? And when we're not paying attention, monsters from a parallel universe or dimension enter into our universe and create fear, which they use to power their world.
Right.
See?
Yeah. They thrive off negative emotions and fear and all these negative things that we experience emotionally is all like gasoline for their particular agenda. This stuff. I can't believe people actually don't do their own research and look at and take his version of it as gospel. His work on the Christ myth, as he would like to refer to it, and justifiably so. I think that there are examples of, Osiris and Jesus and other examples prior to the first century where you have, this death, this reincarnation, or this resurrection. That's a motif that's fairly common, I think, in the ancient world. And he goes through all this, well laid out research research that is taken lock, stock, and barrel from Acharya S.'s book, Sons of God.
Right,
I mean,
but
even the images in her book he uses.
He took it lock, stock, and barrel himself from. I mean, this is Victorian mythological study and early, religious studies. James Fraser's The Golden Bough has all of this stuff in it, and it was written in like 1907 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's a classic book. Everybody should have that.
Indeed, it's like he presents this stuff as it's the fact that people find it novel that amazes me. I mean, some of it's really interesting, and there's some truth in there, but it's the idea that this is groundbreaking revelation that's amazing to me.
Well, that just goes to show that not everybody can be a religious studies scholar and a comparative prophecy scholar, and don't want to be, and they don't want to do the research. They don't want to know where he gets this information from. They don't want to think that he's anything but this demigod that knows a hell of a lot more than I do. I mean, that's people, they abdicate responsibility for their own educational process, and they take shortcuts with people like David Icke. If you're really interested in this stuff, you should look at all points of view relating to it.
Well, it's a lot easier, Chris, to live in a bubble and just follow the people who agree with you, so you learn nothing.
Yeah.
And we can go into a certain cable news network in America where they have surveys.
Don't say it. You're going to get in trouble, Gene.
Well, I'll tell you one survey done by someone representing the same political party that this particular cable news network is oriented towards pointed out that those people are the most ill-informed of anyone, even people who don't watch news at all.
Yeah, I love the results of the poll that was done of Donald Trump followers.
Don't we call him Drumpf, his real name?
Yeah, Donald Drumpf. Yeah, that's his new name now, Donald Drumpf. And what was it? 40% of the people polled, I think it was 40% on this question, thought that that the abolition of slavery was a bad idea. And then, no, it was 20%. And then 40% of the people polled, when asked if the United States should go ahead and go in and take out and bomb the bejesus out of, I think they called it Algareth. They made up some country name, and 40% of the people responded and said, hell yeah, go in there and take them out. We're good Americans. We know how to bomb things. We know how to blow them up and make our military people a bunch of money and put ribbons on their chests and I don't know, suppositories in their carbines or whatever. Let's move along here a little bit. I'm starting to get a little bit outside of myself here. We do have some questions, David. I'd like to try to get to a couple of them before we let you go. And we do appreciate you being on. This is the kind of show that we really enjoy.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
This one comes from Eric the Red, and this is an interesting question because it deals with the whole subject of right-wing versus left-wing conspiracy. And he goes that right-wing websites and comment sections are rife with the belief in conspiracies alleged to be operating behind climate change, the Obama presidency, LGBT rights, and much else. How much of an influence do you think that David Icke, Jim Marrs, and others of the millennial conspiracists, I guess it's your term, bent, have had in preparing the ground for right-wing conspiracies more generally?
Let's have that answer in our next and final segment with, has it been that quick? David Robertson with Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats, I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937. Are your Google search results killing you? Unflattering content in blogs, news articles, online reviews, social media, or other sources can jeopardize your reputation, your business, and your livelihood. Let Reputation.com help. Our patented technology will make the truth about you more visible while pushing down unwanted negative content. Improve your Google search results. Call Reputation.com at 1-800-831-0771 for a free consultation. That's 800-831-0771.
Most of you know that heart disease is the #1 silent killer in the U.S. What if I told you for just $54.95 a month you could fight against heart disease naturally? At Heart and Body Extract, we've been helping thousands of people get back to a healthier heart. Don't just take my word for it. Check out all of the success stories at hbextract.com. Or to order, call 866-295-5305. That's 866-295-5305. hbextract.com. Don't risk it when you can take charge of it.
We all know that Berkey Water Purification Systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 6 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey Water Filtration Systems. The Berkey Light Systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light System today, complete with 2 black Berkey elements for only $231, and the Berkey Guy will ship your order free of charge. With the purchase of a Berkey Light, the Berkey Guy is also offering a set of fluoride and arsenic filters for only $39.99. That's over 30% off the retail price. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at goberkey.com. That's goberkey.com today.
Serious investors and traders want to make 81% return in 60 seconds? Use the same secret algorithm professional hedge fund managers use to make billions of dollars of profits. Turn $250 into $4,903 in just 7 clicks of a mouse. Our tool is so simple that my 82-year-old grandmother can use it to make insane stock market profits. Go to fastwealthfast.com. Watch the free video before the hedge funds make us take it down. Go to fastwealthfast.com. From the Robert Allen System. Current returns not indicative of future results.
Hi, this is Don Ecker, and you are tuned into the Paracast. Let me tell you what, you're going to hear stuff here that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Hear that, George Snorri?
Okay, the question is asked of David Robertson. What's your response?
So the question was, how much have these kind of millennial conspiracist ideas laid the ground for these kind of popular right-wing conspiracies that we're hearing now?
Conspiracies, yeah.
Right. I would say it's, historically speaking, it's the other way around. The right wing were conspiratorial a lot longer than the left wing were, at least in the popular conspiracy theory sense. It's really only the mid-'80s when we start to see strongly left-leaning kind of conspiracy work coming out. It's been suggested that some of the reason for this was because of the attacks on the left by the McCarthyist movement, and then following the Watergate scandal, because the conservative press were, and the government were actively closing down many left-wing critics, that they turned more toward conspiratorial arguments. However, some of these kind of conspiracies that you were talking about there, I mean, like the climate change one really cuts right across the board. There are strongly left-wing people who are claiming exactly the same. I mean, David Icke's a very good example. Richie Allen is making the same kind of argument. So that, for instance, cuts right the way across. But it's certainly the case that something like LGBT rights, or another one is, religion. For the left, religion is largely a conspiracy. For the right, atheism is a conspiracy. But, there are very noticeable polarities in areas where they don't cross. So I would say that there has been very little need for the left to influence the right in the present climate. Rather, what's quite interesting is that we've got strong conspiratorial narratives on both sides of the fence, or both sides of the spectrum, shall we say, which is something we haven't had for a long time. Popular conspiracy theories had tended to go between one or the other. So typically right-wing from the end of the Second World War up until the post-McCarthyist and becoming more so post-Watergate. But now the right have there's been a resurgence of the right, shall we put it that way?
Well, at least in this country, I think during the 60s, there was a lot of right-wing conspiratorial thinking related to expansions of consciousness, psychoactive substances, the anti-war movement, Contrapol. I mean, you could go down the list of paranoid conspiracies that existed in the minds of J. Edgar Hoover, Richard Nixon, and right. The same in England. I mean, you had the same kind of thing mirroring over there, not quite as blatantly. Again, these are all sort of not particularly, there's a crossover between the public face of this and the actual governmental face. And I have a question here from Technomage, and he's wondering, are conspiracy theories just limited to private citizens, or can governments engage in them as well? And we were talking about how they can. But he gives an example. Governments routinely publish information with no independent confirmation, yet the public is expected to believe them. Would those qualify as conspiracy theories? Like the missing $2.2 trillion on the Pentagon announced the day before 9/11. There's a conspiracy theory for you.
Or the fact that the BBC wasn't covering the protests against David Cameron in London last week. I mean,
exactly. Or the fact that the BBC announced that World Trade Center number 7 had just fallen, and yet in the image behind the reporter there was World Trade Center number 7.
There are any number of cases of this. Absolutely, governments indulge in conspiracies. A very clear example is 9/11, where you've got on two sides of the argument, both sides are conspiracies. Okay, so the government did it or Al-Qaeda did it. Both of those are conspiracies. What makes something a conspiracy theory, however, is not simply positing a conspiracy. It has to run counter to official logic. So, for instance, in the McCarthyist era, that was literally a strong conspiratorial narrative, a search for this hidden malevolent agency inside America. But because it was supported by the government, it was seen as legitimate, politically legitimate. Had it been being said by people with no power, it would become a conspiracy theory. This is the issue. I mean, a conspiracy theory is not simply any idea that there are groups working for secretly towards malevolent aims, because undoubtedly there are. What makes it a conspiracy theory is its marginalization by the authorities, by the mainstream. Right. It's a very nice situation, because the moment that you prove something to be correct, then it no longer is a conspiracy theory, and thus you can never have a conspiracy theory that's been proven to be true, because by its very nature, when it gets proven to be true and accepted by the epistemic authorities, it's no longer a conspiracy theory.
Right. They invent a new one. And look at the peculiar situation now where, talking about Obama conspiracies, a very high percentage of Republicans believe he was not born in the U.S. and that he is a secret Muslim. But they don't mention, of course, Ted Cruz, who was not born in the U.S. and is running for president on the basis of the fact that his mother was, and therefore he is